Hello, everyone. This is your recorded FY 2024 HMIS Data Standards training. Okay. The first change to note is translation assistance. A new element has been added to identify if clients need translation assistance, and if so, what language. So HMIS end users or staff should collect this field for all clients that enter the project on or after October 1st, 2023. So that means no need to go back to anyone who entered your program prior to October 1st, 2023. Only those clients that entered a project on October 1st and future clients. Okay. Another field that changed is race and ethnicity. So race and ethnicity options are now combined into one section. An option has been added for Middle Eastern or North African. Hispanic, Latina, Latino, Latinx is now Hispanic, Latina, Latine, Latino. Please note that there is no non-Hispanic Latino option anymore. You just wouldn't select that if that doesn't apply to your client. More than one option can be selected by holding down the control button on the keyboard and then selecting as many as you would like. And a text box is available below to add an additional race and or ethnicity detail from a client. Okay. And this change, you should review this information with any active client at the next appropriate encounter. So next time you see your clients, just go over these options with them because they might identify as a different option now that there are more options. Okay. Similarly, they expanded the gender options. Female is now woman, girl if child. Male is now man, boy if child. Gender other than is now non-binary. An option has been added for culturally specific identity, such as two-spirit. An option has been added for different identity and another text box for some details. And again, more than one option can be selected by holding down the control button on the keyboard. So again, people can choose as many as they would like. They can choose different identity and then provide any details down here in the text box. And again, please review this information with any active client, regardless of when they came into the program, because we just want to give them the option to change their options if they would like to. Moving on to some other changes. This is just a FYI for end users. There is no action needed on your part. It's just good to know moving forward. An option has been added for permanent subsidized options. So a box has been added to specify rental subsidy type when destination rental with ongoing subsidy is selected. So let's say you're doing a exit and you choose destination rental by client with ongoing housing subsidy. You'll be able to select something to provide more detail here in this box. So for example, maybe your client is getting sharp. You would put reason for leaving sharp, destination rental by client with an ongoing housing subsidy, and then type rental by client with other ongoing housing subsidy. Similarly, exit bonus, reason for leaving would be exit bonus. And then you would just say rental by client, no ongoing housing subsidy. Another change to note is enrollment COC. They just changed the wording for this one. So where you normally had to pick MD 601, you will still have to pick MD 601. That is the only option for Montgomery County. but it used to say client location here, but now it says enrollment COC. Also good to note is that client refused is now client prefers not to answer when you're selecting from dropdowns. Client prefers not to answer means that the client knows the information, but does not want to provide the information to record in HMIS. So the dropdowns are just going to look a little bit different. FYI for reporting, as of October 31st, 2023, all of the SAP Business Object reports should be up to date. However, CAN reports, such as the APR, are still being updated by WellSky. And we'll post a system news once we hear that all of those reports have been updated for you. Okay. And now we're going to go over to our live site just to see what these changes look like.
All right. Thank you so much for that clear presentation. Now we're going to look at the training site of our HMIS. And we will be looking at, I'm going to go to the home first. And we'll be looking at a test client, Freddie Williams. So remember, we used the first 3 initials for the first name and last name to search. And here she is, Freddie Williams. So always please make sure you are backdating. What I'm going to do is I will start off with permanent housing entry, and then I will also show what it would look like for a emergency shelter too. So first thing you want to do is make sure you're backdating. So for example, if Freddie joined McKinney 10 as of yesterday, so we'll put in 10/30/2023, yesterday's date, today being 10/31, and then I always like to put in the same check-in dates as a shelter, so 6 p.m. You can click on set back date mode. Next thing is you also want to make sure you are selecting your enter data as a provider if that's not the provider you are entering the client into. For me, because I have a system admin, I'm just going to work off of Montgomery County Continuum of Care. All right. So then we're going to go to entry exit. As always, when you are entering a client, you click on here, the add entry exit button. And then we're going to search for the provider. If you have, which you should have by now, selected your EDA as McKinney 10, it would automatically populate right here. However, my default is still Montgomery County Continuum of Care. So I'm going to search with McKinney 10. And she's working with the McKinney 10 individual contracted, PHIND, provider ID 244. So we're going to select plus on that. Make sure the type is always, always, always HUD, unless you are a PATH programs. And there's very few PATH programs in our system. And case managers know if they're working with the HUD or PATH. Anything else, please leave it as is. Save and continue. Okay, so as my colleague has mentioned right now, first change that you're going to see is the translation assistance needed. And with that, it's just a simple question of, do you need a translation or not? So it's just a yes or no. There is the client doesn't know option, which always used to be here as well. And we used to have client refused, but now that is replaced by client prefers not to answer. And then we have the data not collected. So remember, we never ever really want to put data not collected option. This is in our case, Freddie says yes, she needs translation. So we're going to select yes. Then automatically there are 2 questions that populate because of this yes answer. The first one being preferred language. And there is a different preferred language option. And the other 3 that we have for each of the questions. So we're going to select that. If different preferred language, please specify. So Freddie said she prefers Arabic. So we wrote Arabic in here. Right. It's not a drop down, you just have to type it in. So just make sure you're aware of that. Okay, so that's the first change. And HMIS end users and staff should collect this field for all clients that enter the project on or after October 1st, 2023. Why October 1st? The reason is this was the date when these changes became active in our system. And that happens every 2 years. So make sure, the next time you meet with a client that's currently open with your program, make sure you're asking this question and updating this. Okay. All right. So relationship to head of household is the same. Date of birth and birth type is the same. Race and ethnicity has been combined into one. In the past, race used to be one question, ethnicity used to be another question. Currently, they're both combined into one. And now you can also select more than one here. And notice there's no non-Hispanic, non-Latina, Latini, Latino option. So we have, American Indian, Alaska Native or Indigenous, Asian or Asian American, Black African American, you're Hispanic, Middle Eastern, and then Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, and there's white as well. So if you're trying to pick one, what you need to do is select the first one, press down the control key on your keyboard, and select the next one. There's also another option. So let me just go back and clear it. Freddie said that she is American Indian, so we're going to put that. There's also another option where we can write additional race and ethnicity detail. If it's not included in here, you can put that in, you can type it in this block. All right. For this one, you will need to just review this information with clients that are open currently and active with your program at the next time you have a meeting, right? So you just want to open this and make sure everything is correct. The system should update this, meaning there's a mapping from the previous one, but just double check that. Okay. The third change is gender change, right? So here it used to be female, male. Now it says women in brackets, girl if child. There's man in brackets, boy if child. There is also culturally specific identity. So that is mainly for example, if someone has two-spirit identity, that's the one that you would pick. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, that's a two-spirit refers to Native North American gender identity. So client identifies with an identity that is exclusively to a particular culture for this option, okay? And we have transgender, non-binary, and we have questioning. There's also a different identity here too. This is an additional one. It's a new option. Please make sure that questioning is different than client doesn't know. Questioning is when the client who may be unsure, may be exploring, or may not relate to or identify with a gender identity at this time. So it's definitely different than a client doesn't know. You would pick different identity if a client identifies with another identity that's not listed as a response. So if none of these above options apply to the client, they can pick different identity. However, when they do pick this option, there is another question that is right here. It says, if different identity, please specify. Then you can ask further question to clarify this and type it in here. Okay. Again, with gender too, you could pick more than one gender. So if Freddie had said, I'm a woman and transgender, we would select woman first and then press down on our control key on our keyboard and click on transgender. Let me just clear that and just select woman. Right. This question used to be there as well. So it's the same one as before. Client contact information is also the same. You would click on here and just add whether it's the client's information or a friend or a kinship or a family member, you can still put that information here. None of this questions changed. Okay. Now, disabilities, that's still the same, nothing changed here. Enrollment COC, this used to be client location. Now the name changed, but the answer is still the same. MD 601, that's the only option. So if you see any of your clients that you're working with, if their record shows this blank, make sure you are selecting MD 601. That is the code for Montgomery County that HUD gave us, right? Okay, next one is prior living situation. So for this option, as well as the current living situation in some of programs, and then as well as the exit destination, there's one change, and that is if you open this up under permanent housing situation, the list is a lot smaller than before. Now, if you click on the rental by client with ongoing housing subsidy, there will be another question that populates, which is rental subsidy type. And if you open this, these are different permanent housing options. So if the client used to live with one of the permanent supportive housing programs prior to coming to McKinney, for example, then we would have selected permanent supportive housing here. Okay. In the past, all these options were part of this bigger list under the permanent housing. So make sure if you're selecting any of these options, you have to select first rental by client with ongoing housing subsidy, and make sure you specify one of these. Okay. So, but actually the client came from emergency shelter, right? So all these questions about approximate date homelessness started, this episode of homelessness started is still the same. Income questions are still the same. Non-cash benefit as well, they're still the same. Covered by health insurance, that's also still the same. And again, the questions below here are still the same too. Right? Then once you do this, you will, it just depends on the program. Some programs will do TB checklist, complete that, and TB testing as well. And you'll just save and exit. All right. Say if the client doesn't want to work with this program anymore, and they left their program. So you would go into the exit date. And again, put the exit date, time, make sure that's correct. Reason for leaving, you need to pick the right one. So if it was, for example, if it was exit bonus or sharp, if you selected exit bonus, right, the destination would have been rental by client with no ongoing housing subsidy. Let's go. Rental by client with no ongoing housing subsidy. Okay. If it was sharp, you would have selected sharp/CRRP for the reason for leaving, but the destination would have been rental by client with ongoing housing subsidy. And then here under rental subsidy type, which is the new addition, right? You would have selected other permanent housing. Well, I'm sorry, I meant rental by client with other ongoing housing subsidy. Okay. So there is that additional aspect to the destination, which was similar to prior living situation as well. You click save and continue. The exit sub-assessment is still the same. Nothing really changed in here. Okay. And just save and exit. All right. So let's look at another client and enter that client to emergency shelter, for example, right? As always, you would go to shelters, right? And let's search for Neville. Here it is. Okay. Unit list is Neville Street. So you're going to go to view all option. And you would pick, this is just a test client, because we're in the test site. That's why this is also empty, but if it was a live site, it would have been a lot more clients. So let's click on bed 104. Check here. And let's search for, so for example, if we were to put Freddie in as of today. Actually, let's look for another client, William. Okay, we can add her back in. So Freddie Williams, here she is. We're going to select this one. And again, remember here, shelter check-ins are 6 p.m. Checkouts are 6 a.m., right? So we would put this, if she checked in yesterday, 6 p.m. Supplies given, yes. Depends on, if the shelter has a locker number, any notes. Now, if you scroll down here, the entry sub-assessment for shelters is also available right here. So you can fill this out here. Again, the same questions that we saw on the other end for permanent supportive housing are here too. So translation assistance needed, we would have answered here. Yes, and these are the follow-up questions. If you scroll down, there's race and ethnicity that's combined, right? There's additional race and ethnicity detail here. Gender is available. The options are available right here. If different identity, please specify. We would have specified if you had selected different identity here. Now here it says enrollment COC. Again, it's only MD 601, so we would have selected that. Prior living situation. If this client came from one of the permanent housing options, we would have selected rental by client with ongoing housing subsidy. And then there's this question that appears, rental subsidy type. But we're going to go back to emergency shelter. I'm sorry, placement for habitation prior to coming to this emergency shelter. And make sure everything is up to date, because remember, you were doing an intake when the client comes in. So even if there was a provider that the client was working with prior to coming to your program, you still have to treat the client as if this is their first time entering the system and ask all the questions on your intake sheet, and then enter those questions in the answers into here. Okay. All right. So none of these changed. And now we'll go here. What type of situation have you been sleeping in most often during the last 30 days? This didn't change. It's still the same. Okay. And all we gotta do is save and exit. But even if we have completed this here, we would still need to go, just exit. So here is the client in 104. Right, Freddie is in bed 104 now. But we'd still need to go to the clients here, on Freddie Williams. Make sure we're backdating to 10/30/2020, 3:06 p.m. Remember, because that's when we said Freddie checked in into Neville Street. Just an example. And then, so here we would go in here and make sure that all the questions are correct. Okay. If you are working with a family as well, when you enter the family into shelter in shelters here, right here, you will be able to complete this only for the head of household under shelters. So you have to come here and make sure all these questions are answered for the rest of the members of the household too. So you would click on each member here and fill all these questions out too. Okay. All right. So again, reporting wise, SAP Business Objects has been up to date as of yesterday. So that's great news. Whereas the reports right here, these are our CAN reports, so APR, if you're using daily unit report, if you're a shelter, or service transaction report, all of these have not been updated. WellSky is currently working on it. Once we hear the news that it has been updated, we'll create a system news in HMIS. So please make sure you keep an eye out here. Anytime you see a new system news, it would be starred yellow. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for attending today's training. Have a good one.